for the battered but proud people of the Empire State. From the financial and entertainment epicenter of New York City to the sleeping and empty small cities and towns of upstate, which once bustled with manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
Hello and welcome to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister, and I'm here in the WYSL studio with Bob Savage, as
whatever
usual.
His name is. Yeah, that guy on the other side of the console guy. Yeah. Hi, everybody.
The guy with all the knobs and the buttons. Yep. And I've got a special guest here with us today, Meredith Vacca, who's running for State Supreme Court.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So State Supreme Court, I think, is interesting because a lot of people have no idea that there's a difference between state Supreme Court and federal Supreme Court.
You're right. I know. And campaigning, I say state Supreme Court and they're like, wow. And I know they're automatically thinking about our United States Supreme Court, which is obviously very different than the state Supreme Court.
Yeah. And if you join SCOTUS, if you're one of the justices, you join Judge Judy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly,
there was some survey that people think that Judge Judy's on this.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's actually interesting that you bring that up. Court TV, how does that work? Do you know how court?
You know what? I have watched some of the episodes a long time ago. Very, very different than real life.
Yeah, that's interesting. For the longest time, I just thought it was made up stuff, and then somebody's like, no, that's court. I'm like, is it really though? I don't know that I believe that. I don't believe anything on television. So.
I've never watched that. Do they follow the rules of evidence and everything else, or kind of?
When I've seen court TV, it's really just a bit about a mad ex-girlfriend that and yelling and screaming about something, and we don't usually let our parties yell and scream in court like that, so it's different.
A little more order in the courtroom, maybe. Okay, cool. So we're
gonna have Doug Llewellyn outside going, so what do you think of the outcome?
Yeah, there you go. So guys, we're here in studio. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So if you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to comment. We'll try to address them throughout the show. But the first thing that I think, since you're not an incumbent, this is your first time running for anything political. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So why don't we get to know you a little bit? Why don't you tell us about your background, and we'll go from there.
So I was born in South Korea. My twin sister and I, we were adopted, and we came over to the United States when we were 5 months old. So I've been a United States citizen for my entire life, practically. I grew up in the town of Greece in a big Italian-American family. We have a very close family. We all live in the same zip code. And I currently live in the city of Rochester, in the Park Avenue neighborhood, with my husband, who grew up in Webster. We have a daughter, Genevieve, who is going to be turning 2 in less than 2 weeks, so right before the election.
Oh, that's awesome.
I went to school here. I went to school in Greece, and then I went to Nazareth Hall. I went to Nazareth Academy, which is an all-girls school that is no longer open, and went to Colgate University for undergrad, and then University of Buffalo for law school.
All right. Awesome. Now, I want to circle back to you said you were adopted at 5 months and came over here. So my wife is actually, she came to the U.S. when she was a little older. She was 5, and she didn't get her citizenship until, it's going to be pretty pretty close to a little over a year.
Okay.
At this point. So what do you know how that process went at all? Like you probably don't remember it.
I don't remember it, but I see pictures of it. I know that there was a naturalization ceremony, and I know that happened when I was very young because I remember seeing pictures of it.
That's pretty
my
cool.
sister and I going there. I think it was in state Supreme Court, and I went there with my parents, and it was a really important ceremony. So
yeah.
Now, you're a twin.
I'm a twin.
Are you identical twin?
We're fraternal.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, if you're identical twins and you're both lawyers, I see some potential problems here.
You know what? We were joking about that. Someone was like, gosh, your sister could just go on the campaign and you can get twice as much done. But we are fraternal, and she is not a lawyer. She's a biochemist.
Wow.
Yeah,
Very
very, very different.
cool.
Yeah, very nice. She's still in the area as well?
She lives in Greece.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, and actually the ceremony for getting your citizenship, that's actually a judicial ceremony, is it not?
Yes, it is.
So that's kind of interesting.
Yep.
Very cool. So here you are. I don't think we talked about what you do today, though. So we know a little bit about you.
Yeah.
What's your day job?
So right now, I'm an assistant district attorney in Monroe County. I've been an attorney going on 14 years. And for the first 2 years, I did civil work at a private firm. And then I went to the district attorney's office in 2007. I started out doing, town courts, and then went to city court. And as I moved up, I kind of settled doing child abuse. So I specialize now in child abuse cases, specifically child sexual abuse and physical abuse cases, and homicides. Those homicides involve domestic violence and child fatalities primarily. So I've been doing that work, special victims work, for about 10 years now.
Okay. All right. That sounds like a lot of negativity during the day. Is that all? You have such a big smile on your face. Like
Yeah, it's negative. You know what? I don't look at it as negativity. I mean, my job is definitely very challenging, and having handled lots of different kinds of cases, I think that the child sexual abuse cases are some of the most challenging cases that go in front of our county and Supreme Court. Yes, very challenging emotionally. But I think just over the years of having handled these cases for a while, you kind of learn to find a balance. People always ask, how do I get through the day? How do I not bring it home? I mean, the truth is you do bring it home sometimes, but you have to kind of find a balance between kind of personally investing yourself and caring about what you do, and also separating yourself. And I think that because I see these cases every day and I talk to kids a lot about these kinds of things, you are able to achieve a certain level of separation.
Yeah. I know one of the questions I ask probably every candidate that I ever come across, I asked you months ago, and that was the question of, when you're walking through the mall, when you're walking through the grocery store, and you see that average person pulling the cereal off the shelf, do you believe that they're inherently good or evil? Do you think that without laws and regulations in place, people would just steal the shirt off each other's backs? Would society kind of, the only thing holding them back from doing bad things is law, or people generally, want to be good to each other? And after hearing all of your background, I actually expected you to, from the stuff you have seen, to say, yeah, no, there's a lot of just really bad people out there, but that's not what you went with at all. You were like, no, I genuinely believe most people are still good after everything you've seen. So that really stood out to me.
I do. And you know what? For me, I think that's just my personality. And I've always felt that way. I've always been kind of the glass is half full kind of person. And I think that also translates to just how I feel about people in general. I mean, I do see a lot of bad things out there, but I still have that same attitude.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I think that, I think a little bit later we're going to talk about what makes a good judge, but I certainly think that being able to go into a situation with a clear, open mind that all people that come into the courtroom aren't bad is a really good first starter on that. I mean,
I agree.
Yeah.
I was going to say also, because of the importance of what you do, because children have to be protected, and abusive situations need to be addressed, and justice needs to be done. That's got to be uplifting, I would think.
Definitely. I've been saying as I've been campaigning that our judicial system, although it's definitely not perfect by any means, it does do good things. And in the work that I do specifically with children, I see the judicial system kind of give children a voice. And I'll just give an example. You'd be surprised how many times I have cases where, let's say, the victim's mother doesn't support them. They support the defendant, their boyfriend, and they choose their boyfriend over their child. And then the judicial system gives them that voice that their parent might not give them. So, yes, I definitely see a lot of rewarding things, helping, kids and families. And that's really why I'm running for state Supreme Court justice, because I do see the good that can be done helping people. And helping people on both sides. I've seen it help people on both sides, not just the victim sides, even though I work more closely with victims. I think we can do good things, and that's the reason I want to be a judge.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's interesting because it sounds like you're actually interested in public service, and that's fulfilling for you.
Yes, so, I love public service.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, guys, we're going to take a real quick break here on Radio Free New York. We'll be back in a moment.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice. Save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe. Ride free. Ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York
on the WYSL stations.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. We are in studio with Meredith Vacca, who's running for New York State Supreme Court.
Hey, you want to give them the phone numbers just in case somebody's got a question for Meredith?
If you guys have a question, and I'll just disclaimer this, guys, for you guys in advance, judicial candidates are rather restricted on basically saying how they would rule on the bench. So there's judicial ethics involved. But please, if you have a question, we'll see if we can have it structured in a way that maybe we can get an answer. That number is 585-346-3000, 585-346-3000. If you're outside of the 585 area code, you can call in 866-552-1009. Once again, that's 866-552-1009. And of course, you can jump on Facebook or YouTube and comment here on the live stream. I'm checking the comments right now. Feel free to ask a question, make a comment, and we'll try to take it for you right here on the air. So we talked a little bit about state Supreme Court and how many people confuse it with, federal Supreme Court. Let's talk first about the fact that it's a district. It's let's talk about that and what that district looks like and what you would represent if elected.
Sure. So I am running for state Supreme Court in the 7th Judicial District. That includes 8 counties. So it's all of Monroe County, Ontario, Livingston, Steuben, Seneca, Yates, Wayne, and did I say Seneca already?
I think so.
Cayuga.
Yeah.
Cayuga. That's the last one.
There you go. Yep.
So basically it goes as far south as Steuben, as far east as Cayuga County. So that's the district that I would represent. So I can talk to you a little about state Supreme Court. So as not to be confused with our United States Supreme Court, which is our highest federal court. This is in the state system. It is the highest trial level court. So state Supreme Court judges are administering trials. It is a court of unlimited jurisdiction. So you can have criminal and civil as a state Supreme Court judge. I can tell you as an assistant district attorney, I only handle felony level cases right now, and I have been handling felonies for, the past 10 years. My cases only go to county court or Supreme Court, state Supreme Court, as far as the indictments. So the state Supreme Court judge can handle felony level criminal cases, matrimonial, foreclosure, all different kinds of cases. So
contract disputes, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Contract disputes. In the news, there's been a lot of talk about the Child Victims Act and the civil suits against, the Catholic Church, and those lawsuits would be handled in state Supreme Court.
Okay, interesting. And one of the things, talking about something like a contract dispute, that would go to a lower court first, or how does that make it all the way up to state Supreme Court?
It depends on the amount of money. So in a bigger contractual dispute would go to state Supreme Court. So it has unlimited jurisdiction, but depending on the level, it could go to a more local court or the state Supreme Court.
Like a justice court might have a limit.
Yeah, like 10,000 or something.
Yeah, right. So once you exceed that, you go to the state Supreme Court. Well, I don't want to jump the gun on you, but
go ahead.
Criminal justice reform coming up here first of the year. Big changes.
Huge change.
Yeah. What comment for us? I'm a free association here. What are your impressions about how this is going to affect us?
Well, I think it's a sea change in criminal justice system. And as Andrew already alluded to, I can't say what my position is about the changes in the law, but they're definitely very significant. And for those of you that aren't aware, the significant changes regarding discovery, bail reform, and speedy trial. In discovery, basically, the assistant district attorney or the prosecutors obligated to turn over all of the discovery, and the definition of discovery is greatly expanded within pretty much 15 days of arraignment. So right now, the way discovery is, it's calculated from trial date, but now it's going to be calculated from arraignment date. So that's very different. There's a lot of details regarding that statute that I won't go into. But and then the bail reform obviously is another very big change that I know a lot of people have been talking about, and the changes in the law for that will be significant as far as I think the jail population. I know
it's
when
going to drop significantly.
Yeah, when Governor Cuomo came out and talked about this new law, he said that, in 2018, like 90% of the people in New York City incarcerated would not be incarcerated under this new law. So pretty much all nonviolent felonies, all misdemeanors, there's certain exceptions to
like
that.
Murder and rape and...
Yeah, well, violent felonies, for the most part, judges can still set bail. But for nonviolent felonies and misdemeanors, generally, judges can't set bail. Now, there are certain exceptions. Sex offenses are generally some of the exceptions, even if they're misdemeanors. So, yes, it's very significant change. And even when judges can set bail, there's new restrictions on being able to set bail. When you can set bail, you have to set 3 forms of bail. So you have to have an unsecured bond or partially secured bond, at least one form of that, which is the least restrictive. So there's a lot of changes that we're all going to be dealing with: judges, defense attorneys, and of course the assistant district attorneys and the district attorney.
So suffice it to say, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the system.
Yes. Yeah. I think whenever there's a big change like that, there's a lot of reactions, and you kind of have to see how it plays out, Yeah.
So maybe taking the judicial hat off for a second and putting on the assistant district attorney hat. Do you, with the caseload you're taking right now, and because you're handling discovery right now and turning over all these records, and that's your daily job right now, do you think that that's going to make the job of a district attorney more difficult, or an assistant district attorney, or anything like turning that stuff over? It sounds like a lot quicker,
Yes, and again, I say that without giving any indication of how I feel about it, but practically, yes, it's going to put a significant burden on prosecutors to get all of this out really quickly.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting because you have that perspective, because that's what you're doing right now. So that's kind of that's interesting to me. I know there's a lot of talk about what these changes might look like. Do you know for those offenses that you would be able to set bail for, do you know if house arrest is an option in place of bail?
Yes. So part of the law that's changing says that judges have to use the least restrictive means necessary to ensure that the defendant comes back to court, because that's the purpose of bail, is to make sure the defendant comes back to court. So, yes, using some sort of pretrial release, which includes electronic monitoring, things like that. I think people call it house arrest, are things that judges can utilize. So even if a judge is allowed to set bail on a defendant for a violent felony, it doesn't mean they have to set, monetary bail. They can release the defendant to some sort of pretrial if they think that's the least restrictive means that will ensure that the defendant comes back to court. Yeah.
No, that's great. And I think you brought up a really important point, which is bail is not meant to be punitive. It's meant to ensure that, the person comes to court, because, we haven't decided if they're guilty yet. So the system shouldn't be punishing people in advance for a crime that maybe they didn't commit.
Yes.
So, yeah, no, that's great. So we're talking about judges, justices, how you interact with, or how the DA's office interacts with a state or a court system in general. Is it different, the DA's office, how they interact with, say, the county court versus the Supreme Court, or is it basically the same thing? It just depends on how bad the offense is?
Yeah, you know what? It's basically the same thing. So in Monroe County, when a felony is indicted, that indictment goes to either a county court or Supreme Court. They don't distinguish between whether it's like a homicide or maybe a D felony or something like that. So our Monroe County Court judges and our state Supreme Court judges all handle homicides and things like that. Yeah. It's really just a wheel.
Awesome. Sure. Yeah, no, that's great. All right, guys, we're here on Radio Free New York. We're talking to Meredith Vacca, who is running for New York State Supreme Court. We are going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a moment.
Radio Free New York.
Listening to the voice of liberty. WYSL. AM 1040 Avon, Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, FM 95.5 Spencerport, and WYSL1040.com everywhere.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Aircraft Environmental Systems proudly supports Radio Free New York. Rochester-based leaders in climate simulation chambers for America's R&D laboratories. We're experts in troubleshooting, calibrations, custom designs, and consulting for more than 40 years. Industry pioneers, we created the first ever fleet of temperature, humidity, and altitude test chambers available to rent coast to coast. Trained and trusted by environmental chamber manufacturers, we are ACES. Find us at acesinc.com.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Radio Free New York on WYSL, AM 1040, FM 92.1, and FM 95.5 West.
All right, we are back here on Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. We are live in the WYSL studio, and we have Meredith Vacca here, who's running for New York State Supreme Court.
Yep.
So tell us again, because the station covers many counties, the counties in your district.
Yes. You want to know all the counties?
Quiz. Yep.
Okay, sure. So it's all of Monroe. So it's 8 counties altogether. Yep. So all of Monroe, Ontario, Livingston, Seneca, Steuben, Yates, Cayuga, and Wayne.
Okay. And is it all of those entire counties, or are some of them kind of divided and gerrymandered up? And
the whole county. Yep. Yeah. So it's really as far south as Steuben and as far east as Cayuga.
Okay.
Presided over by Craig Doran, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The big boss of the judges.
Yep. So we talked a little bit about what makes a good judge. But that was just kind of one thought that I had. What do you think, especially as an assistant district attorney, makes somebody maybe qualified to consider candidacy for a judge? And then what qualifiers do you think make a judge a good judge?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. It's something I've obviously been thinking about a lot. So I kind of divide it into 3 big qualifications that I think are really important for a judge to have. Number one, courtroom experience. I think that to run a courtroom, you have to have courtroom experience, specifically trial experience, because these judges are running trials, and, trials it's different than just like watching a trial. When you're in a trial and you're having to really think on your feet and answer difficult questions and respond to objections and, do jury selection and those kinds of things, it's important to have experience in doing trials, on whatever side. I also think that a judge needs to have experience working with people, because you're going to be making significant decisions about people's lives, and you don't want a judge to be kind of out of touch with real people in our community from all walks of life. So I think it's important that a judge have some experience, talking to people about all different kinds of things. And the third qualification that I think is really important, that makes a judge really good, is making good decisions, having experience in making good decisions, and not just good decisions, but making decisions about tough things. And let me expand on that. So, as an assistant district attorney, our client is the people of the state of New York. So we are making decisions about what we think is good for our community or right for our community. And I can tell you that making those very difficult and challenging decisions is not easy. There's rarely ever a clear-cut answer to that question. And, I found over the years, you really have to gain and develop a skill in making tough decisions. It's probably the toughest part of my job as a prosecutor. It's also probably the best part of my job because it gives me that discretion to make these really tough but important decisions that affect people's lives. So as a judge who's going to be making these really difficult decisions, I think you need to have background and experience to do that.
Yeah. And you mentioned background and experience. I know in some of the town courts, you don't have to be an attorney to get elected. Is that the case for state Supreme Court? Do you have to be an attorney?
Yes, you have to be an attorney. You have to have been practicing for 10 years.
Okay.
So yes, but our town court judges don't have that requirement. You can be a town court judge and be an engineer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which there are some town courts in Monroe County. The justice is not an attorney, and some attorneys they really don't like that. Yeah. That they've said, and it's interesting is, call me a civilian, I guess, I sit there and I wonder, if it's a bad thing or not. Supreme Court is definitely, I would say
case by case, right?
Yeah.
Some of them some are not bad, right? They're pretty good.
The town court judges?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Not non-lawyer judges.
Yes, and the town courts, especially some of the more outlying ones that don't have as many cases, maybe they meet once a month. Mm-hmm. They're doing a lot of traffic and maybe DWIs, and they do good jobs. So
yeah. So say things go well and you get elected. Do you have an idea of what a day is going to look like for you? Like, what's a work day look like for a Supreme Court justice? Well,
you're going to be handling cases. You're going to be in court. Obviously, there will be times when you're not in court. Judges often have a day when they have, a docket and the cases come before them. You'll be doing trials. So you'll be in the courtroom, and if you're not in the courtroom, you're going to be going through the files, looking at the memorandums, and obviously having your law clerk assist you with that as well.
So no golfing? Everybody says that's what judges do. They golf.
I'm going to have to take it up. I'm going to have to take it up.
It's like I think that's the biggest stigma about judges is that they golf.
I think so too. Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a question real quick. We hear in the popular media, you hear the phrase bandied about legislating from the bench. Mm-hmm. Just in general terms, give us your thoughts on that. Talk a little bit about legislating from the bench. That is interpreting the law as opposed to making law.
Yeah, and maybe give some of the listeners a background on like what that means and what an example could be.
Okay, so when someone says, are you going to legislate from the bench? I take that as being a judge that is going to try to make decisions that support their own kind of political ideals or making policy from the bench. And
ideological.
Yes, and I can tell you that's not a judge's job at all. We are not supposed to legislate from a bench. We're apolitical, so that's not something that I plan on doing. I could also just say practically, as a trial level judge, a state Supreme Court judge, even the potential to legislate as people think of it, it's not really there as opposed to our United States Supreme Court judge. So I think a lot of people that aren't lawyers, that don't appear in front of judges on a regular basis, think that this is what we do. But trial level judges, they're making very specific decisions, and as a trial level judge, we are bound not only by the statutes but also by legal precedent and case law. So we have to follow case law by the appellate division and the Court of Appeals, which is our highest court in New York State. So there is no legislating for the bench, and that's not, and I've been saying this to people because they like to ask about politics and things like that, and I tell them that we're apolitical. In my experience, the very best judges, you do not know whether they're a Democrat or Republican. They're just fair, and that's what we really need, are just balanced, fair judges. Contrary to what might people think because of what you hear in our news, but we really just want fair judges. You don't, like I said, the best judges, you're not like, oh, that judge has to be Democrat. I mean, you don't really know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. In the era of Donald Trump, I think everybody's considering these circuit courts. These circuit courts of appeal, and they are making profound policy. And by the way, you touched on this earlier in the show. It's important for people to realize that in New York State, the Supreme Court is the lowest court. That's the trial level.
It's the trial level, yes. Right. It's the highest trial level court. So we're doing trials, and and you mentioned the circuit court, which is in the federal system. That's the middle court. So and yes, we are in the Second Circuit. That's those kinds of courts make significant decisions that we usually think about. But state Supreme Court judges make important decisions, but I think it affects us more on a practical level than this kind of wide sweeping, political
social,
level.
Exactly.
Ideological level that people think about usually.
Social engineering, right?
Yeah. Something you mentioned too. You mentioned that judges. I think you said they are apolitical, or should be apolitical,
yes,
right?
We should be apolitical.
What are your thoughts on, something that I always thought is things like justices, school board, those type of elected positions shouldn't show party lines on the ballot to help people focus more on the apolitical aspect of that position?
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for that, and I've had that question a lot on the campaign trail. They say, well, if you're apolitical, then why are you running under a party? And that's just how it is. And, federal judges, the district court judges, which is the trial level judge, they are appointed. So it's just how our system works. I don't want to say whether it's better or worse, but I think there's definitely good things about being elected and not so good things. And there's always the question, what's better? Is it better to have judges appointed or not appointed? And regardless of how you do it, there always seems to be some sort of politics that get involved into it.
Yeah, because if you get appointed, there's a majority somewhere.
Of course.
Right. Yeah. So, no, more so the idea of when the voter goes to the ballot, they see the name, but they don't see what party it's associated with. I think that would force people to really sit there and have to research each person and see, do they think that person's going to be a fair judge?
Yeah.
And it's not based on what you might think about when you go home. It's more based on how are you going to practice in the courtroom. So it's one of those things I'd love to see one day. I don't know. We'll keep working on it, see if it happens. So you mentioned the Child Victims Act, and we've got about 3 minutes till our next break. Do you think we can cover that in 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Let's talk about what that is, because I think maybe some people don't know what that is.
Sure. So the Child Victims Act is a new law in New York State. It actually became effective on Valentine's Day of this year, and it affects criminal and civil. So I think in the news we've heard more about civil, and it affects the statute of limitations. So how long a person has to file a civil lawsuit. So now the statute of limitations on civil cases is 55 years old, but then there's this look back period, a 1-year look back period where there is no statute of limitations. So we've been seeing this kind of influx of civil suits in our area. And that look back period, I think, started August 14th of this year and then ends August 14th of next year.
I got confused. Look back period as opposed to the statute of limbs.
Yep.
What's the look back period?
So the look back period basically is 1 year where there is no statute of limitations. So even if you're over 55, it doesn't matter. You can file a lawsuit for that 1 year. There's an open period. So that's for civil. Okay. For criminal, basically, and I won't get into all the details, but it's increased from when you can bring a criminal charge against someone when the victim is now 28 years old. Before it was 23 years old. But there's other. I'm generalizing it right now. Yeah. But that's generally what the takeaway is.
So does that mean you turn 29 now? You can't go after somebody anymore? Is that kind of vaguely, generally what that means?
Yes, and there are some exceptions. The most serious felonies, you can't. There's no statute of limitations.
Okay. What's an example of?
So, like rape in the first degree. So, let's say there was a rape charge where there was forcible compulsion, or a child was 10 years old. Those kinds of things. Now, there's no statute of limitations for those things.
Okay, interesting. And the
widely increases the scope of claims that can be brought.
Yes.
No. And specific for civil, once you hit older than 55, you can't go civilly.
Correct. Okay. Yep. Except for this look back period.
Except for this short 1 year period.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Awesome. All right, guys. This is Radio Free New York. We are on air with Meredith Vacca, who's running for New York State Supreme Court. We're going to take a real quick break here, and we'll be back in a moment.
On Radio Free New York, be sure to let your local affiliate know you appreciate their carrying the program.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Fiorella, a family-owned farm-to-table Italian restaurant with casual atmosphere at the newly renovated Rochester Public Market. Fiorella offers wood-fired, old-world-style pizza with naturally leavened dough, house-made fresh pasta, desserts, and gelato. Enjoy craft beers, imported Italian and New York State wines. Open Wednesday through Saturday for lunch and dinner. Wednesday evenings enjoy no corkage fee. And Thursday is gnocchi night. Call 434-5705 for reservations. View the menu on the web. restaurantfiorella.com.
Why do businesses choose Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York on the WYSL stations.
And we're back here on Radio Free New York. I'm your host, Andrew Hollister. We're in studio with Meredith Vacca running for New York State Supreme Court. And reading through some of the comments online here, Chase says, I hope she wins.
Thanks, Chase. I appreciate that.
No. So a couple things that I want to hit with you before we get to the end of the show. The first is a lot of times people ask about jury nullification. They want to know, is that something that actually happens? Some people say that either the DA or the judge will say that can't happen in my courtroom. You know, there's a lot of stuff around it, and it seems to be one of those things that nobody knows a lot about. So maybe give us just a little bit of information on jury nullification. Sure.
Well, you know, I can tell you that based on my experience as an assistant district attorney, it's something that we talk about, something that we consider, but in reality, I haven't seen it happen. It hasn't happened with any of my cases, but I would add that, you know, the cases I handle are very serious child abuse cases. So I think that they probably would tend to happen less in those kinds of cases. So I haven't seen it happen before. I'm sure it's happened. And as far as a judge's role in that, you know, the judge's job is to instruct the jury on the law and give them instructions as far as deliberating. But there's only so much I think anyone can do if a jury decides to do that. So the judge, I don't see how a judge can really 100% prevent something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a possibility, but it seems to be a rarity, you know, for sure, if it even happens.
Yes.
But it's something that's at least being discussed in the DA's office.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that we've brought up before, you know?
Yeah. No, that's good. You know, something that I know a lot of people who listen to this show, both on the air and online, are thinking about right now, and something we talked about just a little smidget, is the fact that red flag laws could potentially come into the courtroom. And that's a thing that's, you know, could be a reality for people in New York.
Yes. So what I can say is that the red flag law petitions would be filed in state Supreme Court, so the court that I'm running for. You know, before I came here, I actually checked to see if there had actually been any hearings conducted regarding these new laws, and I don't believe there have been, at least no hearings that the district attorney's office have been put on notice for or been involved in any way. But yes, potentially it could become in front of me if I was elected as state Supreme Court judge.
Yeah. And not having, you know, the law in front of me, do you anticipate that this could be, you know, something that could come in front of you, could be anything from maybe a teacher reporting at school versus somebody reporting stuff on social media? Do you think that's stuff that would come in, or do you think it's going to be a narrower scope than that?
You know, I think under the law, the only people that can file the petition are police officers, the district attorney's office, family members or someone in the household, and you know, someone at a school. So as far as like someone just on social media, those
not going to be that person that you're constantly fighting with back and forth on social media, arguing in the comments, and then all of a sudden your stuff's shipped off to court. They'd have to call the police first. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So someone like that. I mean, there's certain people that are allowed to file the petition, and someone on social media like that's not allowed under the law.
Yeah. Okay. Unless your brother doesn't like you or something. They
if your brother's, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, we talked a little bit about what makes a good judge, but one of the things that we probably didn't hit on is I think that in general today, and I think this is changing, to be honest, but I think a lot of times people are disinterested in judicial races. They don't understand how impactful they can be. Since there's judicial ethics, the candidates can't talk about a lot of policy issues. But in my mind, our judges are they're definitely one of the most important, elected roles, period.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, or just generally speaking, why should people care about judges? Like what's so special about judges? Why should they go to the polls and think like, of all the candidates I'm looking at, I need to look at the judicial candidates?
That's a good question. So I think that, our judges really have a lot of discretion and impact on people's lives. I would say even more so than some of the other political offices that we elect. And a lot of times our complaints for them is that they don't act, they don't make decisions. Judges have to make decisions. I mean, numerous decisions every day that really impact people's lives. I mean, a judge can decide whether someone goes on probation or goes to state prison. Those are big decisions, and judges make those kinds of decisions every day for multiple people. So, yes, I think we should care about the kinds of judges that we elect, because we just want our judges to be fair and balanced. Yes, I know that our campaigns might not be as exciting as some of the other political offices that are campaigning because we are restricted, but judges have a lot of discretion and something in making decisions that we should care about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I know New York State is trying to take more and more of that discretion away. And I don't know, maybe you can't comment on that, but I know that, New York State is constantly trying to give the judges more and more restrictions in terms of, guidelines, things like bail, for example. So that this is me saying this. I hope that our judges get to keep their discretion as we continue to move forward in New York State.
There's and what I can say is that there are parts of the law that, judges have lots of discretion. And I'll just give an example. Let's say a judge is sentencing a defendant after they've been convicted of a violent felony. The sentence range is 5 years to 25 years. I mean, that's a pretty wide range, and a judge has the discretion to decide what sentence that person should serve. So, yes, that's an example of a wide amount of discretion that a judge has.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a couple minutes left on the show. I would like to give you the opportunity to just say what you think would set yourself aside, and why you think people should be looking to you to be their next New York State.
Yeah. Why do you want to, you've been in private practice, you've been a prosecutor. Why do you want to be a Supreme Court justice?
I see being a Supreme Court justice as the next step in my career. And as I said earlier, I really believe in our judicial system, as imperfect as it is. In my job, I get to see it do good things and help people. And that's what I want to do. I want to, be in a role that helps people, and that's both sides. So I really see a judge as being empowered to do good things for our community. What kind of sets me apart, I really think it's my experience in the courtroom doing trials. I've handled thousands of cases. I've handled over 30 felony trials. And as I mentioned before, just talking to people, as a prosecutor, I'm not just in the office all the time doing research. I'm out there kind of in the trenches talking to police officers and teachers and counselors and families. So I really am in touch with our community, and those are the things that I think set me apart and would make me a really good judge.
Awesome. Very cool. And how can people find more information about the campaign? Actually, before you say that, early voting starts tomorrow.
Yes, it does.
Tomorrow, early voting starts. So I meant to mention that at the beginning of this show, guys. If you're in Monroe County or whatever other county, go to your county board of elections website, look up the polling locations. I think Monroe County specifically has like 6 or 7 polling sites. I plan on going to vote tomorrow. So guys, make sure that you're doing your research. Make sure you get out there and vote.
Yep. Early voting starts tomorrow. So
awesome. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us on Radio Free New York. We have Meredith Vacca here in the studio. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, good luck with the campaign.
Thank you.
Oh, that's great. All right, guys, we will catch you on Monday.
Don't forget, Radio Free New York, always available at WYSL1040.com. We'll see you next time.